Welcome to this new video. I have my friend here, this little friend, and today I thought that we would talk a little bit about our own anatomy. I don't know why that's always so difficult for me to pronounce. Anatomy and biomechanics of our hip joint. It's so important to understand your own anatomy and of course also the horse's anatomy and how our bodies function separately and also together. So and hip joint is one of the most important, probably, especially if we think about riding, but of course also our overall health and fitness. So if we look at the hip joint, we can see that it's like a ball and socket joint. So there's this kind of cup, and then there's this like ball, and so it makes it quite mobile. It can move in many different directions, and it also can, do this like a rolling motion. And shoulder is also a ball and socket joint, and shoulder joint is actually a lot more mobile than our hip joint, and that even though they are both ball and socket joints, but the difference is that the hip joint is carrying weight, so we're standing on it, so it needs to be stiffer in a way, so there are a lot stronger ligaments and muscles that are holding it together, so then it doesn't like dislocate as easily as, for example, shoulder joint. And if we think about our pelvis and how our pelvis moves, the hip joint is of course going to affect the mobility of our pelvis, and also our lower back is going to affect the mobility. So if our lower back doesn't move like at all, then our pelvis cannot move that much either. So they both play a role. And how the pelvis connects to the spine is through SI joint, so sacroiliac joint. But sacroiliac joint is actually not that mobile. There's a little movement, of course, but it's not really a lot. And so now let's talk about the hip joint. So as we see, it can do this kind of like rolling motion and other like movements that come from our hip. It's of course like flexion, so this is flexion, this is extension, so our femur is like moving back, and then there's adduction, so it's the leg is coming like towards the midline, and then there's abduction, so the leg is coming like away from our body to the side, and then there's also rotation. So it's going to like rotate out, or it's going to rotate in. And these are the movements. And when we are like training hip mobility, it's important to address all these movements. And because it's all going to affect your riding, especially if there are any like pronounced restrictions or like stiffness, or there are a lot of like differences between the different size, because that might make you like more asymmetrical and not to be able to follow the horse's movement as well. So that's why it's so important to keep our hips mobile. And one more thing before we finish this video. So the movements, like I said, all these different directions if we are moving our leg. But another thing is is the movement of our pelvis. So if we keep like stabilize the femur or our leg, then also the pelvis can move around the hip joint. Now I cannot really my friend is a little bit too stiff so I can't really move his pelvis separately, but this is also movement from the hip joint, even though I am not like moving the leg. I'm moving the upper body, but the movement is coming from the hip joint. That's actually really good to understand also if we think about riding, because that's quite a lot what happens, that the pelvis is moving around the hip joint. So this is it for today, and I will make another video. I already have some videos about different exercises that are going to improve the mobility of your hips, but I'll make some more also, and then you can choose the exercises that are best for you. And again, I'm going to say this, but it's always good to get a check from a physiotherapist, for example, because then you can they can prescribe you exercises that are like designed especially for you, and so they will have they might have even a bigger effect. But yeah, that's it for today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.